Okay, here's a bowl that I threw on my Pacifica wheel. The pattern's very different from a lot of those I've been doing lately. I've switched back over to more of a southwestern scene type style on it here. So anyway, the piece in the view in the bottom right hand corner is the part when it was completed with the carving. It's still leather hard. It was sitting on my Lockerbie wheel. The large view is the one that shows it in process, and the other one shows it at different stages. So here it is. I've carved out the first, a rough draft of the first gecko on there. I'm going to put one on the other side also, be like a flip flop, 180-degree image of it. And so you can see it turning on there. This is still a rough draft. I'll have to go back in there with some fine tools, some small music wire tools, and clean up some of the corners and edges and stuff like that. I use a wider variety of tools now, but I'll still have to clean it up. So here I am. This piece was a little dry. I had to moisten it down a few times. It was getting a little bit too, wasn't just the right moisture level that I like. So here I'm using a larger tool just to do some rough cuts on here, just clean out some surface, remove the stained area to offset the pattern. And then I'll come back in the next step with a little bit smaller tool. There'll be two patches in between the two patterns with the gecko, and they'll have completely different patterns. They'll offset one another. It has a little bit of a southwestern flair to it. I live in the Southwest, so I see a lot of that stuff, and I've used it for both my house and different other things around me. So I'm just carving away at it here. This was thrown on my Pacifica wheel, and now it's been moved over to my Lockerbie. And again, this is where I do most of the carving, and almost all of the carving is on the Lockerbie wheel. It's so much easier to move around. And I use a wider variety of tools now than I used to use. I used to make my own music wire tools, but now, like the one in my hand, it's just a commercial part that I purchased, and it works really well for larger surfaces. And I use larger tools now compared to what I used to do. I used to take it off mostly with smaller cuts, but I'll come in here with a wider tool and clean up some areas, and then come back in there and do some detail work. So here I'm just doing some rough layout here of the foot, and I'll come back in there and clean that up with the small music wire tools, just softening up a few edges here with a larger tool, trying to take some of any grooves from the carving out. I'm trying to keep these where they're a little bit rough looking. For a long time I worked with real high-tech equipment, manufactured parts that were extremely detailed, and it's nice to, as I'm retired now, try to just do things that are a little bit more open rather than having to worry about couple of thousandths fit on on a few parts. But anyway, I'm just doing a rough cut here with a small loop tool, and I'll come back and clean that up a little bit also for the little corners and intersections and things. So there'll be a pattern like the one I'm doing now. There'll be like a pattern on the other side of that. See, I have one patch there, it's not carved. So this clay here is clay I buy in Albuquerque. It's Maryland's clay, and it's a cone 5 clay. I fired a little bit over cone 5. If they go too much higher, it gets darker and rougher. But for the kind of work I do, they're decorative pieces. I don't have to worry about dishware or anything being in the water or anything like that. It's just mainly a decorative piece. So here I'm adding a few new vertical lines on the side. The piece is upside down right now. As you can see in this view, I haven't cleaned up the footing on the bowl yet. I'll take it over to my other Pacifica wheel and use my old Griffin grip tool to clean up the base on the pot here in a little bit. On the view on the right side, you can see the footing on that piece. It's been cleaned up, and there's a little recess in the middle, so it'll set level and won't rock. Here I'm just adding a few guidelines for a pattern that would go vertical from the base to the top of the bowl. And here I'm back using my little music wire tool that I use a lot. I make these out of the music wire myself. I'm just laying out the pattern. It's kind of like a sketch. Back to using the wider tool now just to take out some larger areas again, and then again I'll come back in with the smaller tool, clean up this area here. I like using the Lockerbie wheel for the carving. It's just so easy to move back and forth in one little area instead of having to make a full turn. Like you can always use a little turn on the rotating surface, but it's so nice to set them on the Lockerbie and just sit there and move it back and forth with your foot and not have to worry about even really using your hands too much. So this is a piece when it's pretty much done with the carving. Um, there may be a few more little touch-up things here and there. I'll take a look at it. Sometimes I look at it in a video, and if I see something loose offset, I'll go back in there and clean it up. But anyway, this piece is pretty far along or pretty much done. Like I say, now you can see it has the footing on the top in the main view. So that was cleaned up there. So this part again is almost done. And you can see on the right side the details a little bit. I like it a little bit rough, not too finished. I just don't want it to look like something from Walmart, that was just cast in a mold. So it's pretty much a rough cut. Kind of, I'm not trying to make really primitive work, but I'd like to have it handmade, kind of like a earthy look to it, I guess. And that's pretty much it for this piece here. After it's done, I keep these pieces in barrels, uh, and they stay moist for me for quite a while. And I just take them out and work on them as I want to, one by one. I'm not a full production potter. I don't try to crank out 100 pieces a week or anything like that. But I do enjoy the details and the time that goes into carving these pieces out. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, just give me a note.